All right, welcome back to another car review or another car discussion piece. Once again, YouTube, this is for educational purposes. The products I'm discussing are all federally legal in the United States and are all unscheduled, with the exception of a couple unique states and regions in which you're going to have to know those particular laws. Otherwise, all of this is completely legal. These are unscheduled. This is for educational purposes and a harm reduction. Do not get on me about this. Stop trying to take down my videos. I know your AI is extremely terrible. Hopefully, if I scream education, parody, educate, all the whatever buzzwords will get them to shut up. So this video is the most generic. What is in my mystery magic mushroom product? I'm going to give a brief overview of the kind of substances you should expect to find in these products at smoke shops, at dispensaries. If it says magic mushrooms on them, they almost certainly will contain one of the substances I am describing. So, substance number one, Amanita muscaria. Amanita muscaria is often in these smoke shops called a magic mushroom, but it's kind of deceptive. It's not a tryptamine psychedelic. It is quite psychoactive, but it behaves very differently, it feels very differently, and has very different interactions with other substances. Amanita muscaria is the broad term to refer to a series of different types of mushrooms under the Amanita branch. Amanita muscaria typically is going to look like your classic red mushroom with white spots, or the inverse. Very iconic. Think Mario mushroom. Type mushroom in your phone's keyboard and it's going to pop up the emoji for the mushroom. That is Amanita muscaria. Amanita muscaria has a long history of basically every culture on Earth dabbling with it to some extent. Sometimes they're used for like shamanic practices where people will boil it and drink it and speak with spirits. It's very popular in Central Asia and Northern Eurasia. So think a lot of the Siberian cultures, a lot of the Mongol Turkic nomadic people groups would often take teas with Amanita muscaria as a means to shamanically communicate with the spirits of the land, with Tengri, with all of the other different local deities. It's very popular. It's still used in some places today very frequently. The most prominent example of Amanita being used in a context that you're likely aware of is the Berserker Vikings. This is a subject to where there's been some research into it, but because the Vikings in this era were not really fond of, writing shit down, it's kind of hard to really gauge this. The Viking people groups obviously had the runic system, but the runic system was typically meant for like adornments on like sculptures or rune stones, graves, swords. It was not often used for scribal purposes, for keeping records. So a lot of this stuff is like word of mouth, generation by generation by generation. But it was believed that some berserkers would consume Amanita muscaria raw. That's where we get into the complicated shit. What happens if you eat Amanita muscaria raw? Well, you are taking in a lot of a substance called ibotenic acid. Ibotenic acid is labeled as extremely poisonous and toxic if you were to look it up. But this is one of those situations to where it's a matter of awareness, not a matter of danger. Alcohol is extremely toxic and dangerous, but we drink that. What makes ibotenic acid any unique? People will say, oh, well, in studies of like mice and rats, it causes brain lesions. Well, yeah, because they injected it into the rat's brain. There seems to be no concrete evidence that ibotenic acid can cross the blood-brain barrier. As in, it's extremely unlikely it's going to fuck with your head in any real meaningful way. It just doesn't work that way. Again, there's not much research into the subject. It's still labeled as effectively poisonous, so nobody gets this shit done with it. So ibotenic acid is dangerous because it'll make you fucking nauseous. You don't really want ibotenic acid. What you want is mucimol and muscarine. These are two byproducts that occur when the body breaks down ibotenic acid via heat. So these cultures that would boil it into tea, that's breaking the ibotenic acid into the mucimol. The mucimol is where you start getting the interesting effects, and that was the desirable goal. But the berserkers, when they would take it raw, because part of the come up on the ibotenic acid on high enough amounts basically makes you deranged. And so it was very useful for being deranged and, you know, being a naked man running into combat with axes screaming Valhalla. It was useful for that context. What makes Amanita, Mucimol, Ibotenic so fascinating is it's kind of like an everything substance, to where depending on the context, it can make you very awake, it can make you very sleepy, it can make you very disassociative, it can make you very concentrated. It's strange, it's hard to predict. It seems like the way that your trip behaves has to do with the ratio between the three main, Ibotenic, Mucimol, Muscarine. Depending on that ratio is what will kind of determine the kind of trip you get. Most people who consume Mucimol use it as a sort of daily, kind of like a supplement. It's a very interesting thing because Mucimol, ibotenic acid, and muscarine all operate on GABA receptors. GABA receptors are one of the receptors in the body that kind of is responsible for a lot of the type of classic euphoric symptoms you'll get from many substances. It also, because it is a GABA receptor, has a lot of cross tolerance with alcohol and benzos. Meaning, if done properly and carefully, you can successfully use Mucimol and Amanita to wean off of alcohol and benzo addiction. I can't speak to benzo addiction, but I can to alcohol addiction. I went from being a profound alcoholic to basically stone cold sober within a month of using this daily. It just isn't a problem anymore. Whether or not that'll work for you is obviously for you to try and research. If you want to know more about the positive health side effects of Amanita, I highly recommend the YouTube channel Amanita Dreamer. She is basically the preeminent expert in this subject. She definitely leans a bit more into like the wacky hippie kind of stuff, but like, hey, I respect it. She does good work. She's helped many people. If you want to know more, check out her channel. I'll try to link it in the description when I get the chance. So if you're going to go to one of these smoke shops and it's going to say like, oh, Amanita or this or that, you're going to expect a very unusual high. Sometimes Amanita will be sold on its own, or more accurately, it tends to be Mucimol extract. Very few of these companies actually are selling the mushroom because it tastes terrible. So they'll juice it, they'll get the Mucimol, or they'll get a synthetic version, and that'll be the main thing that is in your product. So say you take, I've not had them, but like take the road trip Amanita gummies. To my understanding, that's just straight Amanita, no other nonsense. It's Mucimol. In low doses, you're going to get a sensation that kind of feels like a mixture between a light indica and a chill wine alcohol. You know, like a calm down at the end of the day kind of high. In higher doses, you're going to start to feel very disassociative. Think like DXM, think like ketamine, even whippets or nitrous if you're doing enough of it. It's going to be very disassociative. Are you going to, quote unquote, trip? Kinda. You will start to get some of the color enhancement effects that you would expect on low doses of psilocybin mushrooms or synthetic psilocybin. Right, so you'll get kind of to where colors seem more saturated, they seem more bold. You'll kind of get that little minor shutter vision that's pretty typical at low doses as well. And on high enough doses of Amanita, you will get kind of like tracers. Things will seem like they're moving in slow motion. Again, if you've done nitrous, if you've done DXM at above Plat 2, it's going to feel a lot like that, except far less you wanting to barf constantly. Yeah, it just sucks a lot less. Where the problem comes in is most of the time, if you're going to find an Amanita labeled product in a smoke shop, that shit's got cannabis in it also. And if you know it has cannabis in it also, that can be fine because the two do synergize quite well. But if you don't know, and you don't know how much, you will green out like a motherfucker. If you don't know what greening out is, that's kind of the cannabis term for blacking out, where you will be rendered in a state of complete incapacitation from being too high. Typically, if you're gonna green out, it's gonna be from edibles. And if you're gonna get Amanita gummies and it has cannabis, it's obviously edibles. The shit can be strong. I personally have a really, I have a really, really low tolerance to edible THC. And it can affect me in ways that are very unusual, to where I could smoke 2 grams and be fine, but on the wrong day, if I had 10 milligrams of an edible, it can render me incapacitated. It's very strange how it behaves that way. So your mileage may vary. However, again, because they have such cross-boosting properties, shit'll make you green out like a motherfucker. Say the package says that it's like 50 milligrams of Delta 8. That's not very much of Delta 8. But say it has like even a small amount of Mucimol in it, that 50 milligrams could feel like 250 instantly. It's very strange. Your body will react a little bit differently, but like that's how it... Shit can be dangerous, so be careful, read your labs. Because Amanita and Mucimol is basically legal everywhere in the United States with the exception of a couple counties and for sure Louisiana. It is fully banned in Louisiana. But everywhere else, it's pretty much fully open, legal, no shady shit. So often they will have the lab tests and you can check the exact amount of whatever cannabinoids are in it and the specific amount of Mucimol or Amanita muscarine ibotenic acid. They typically will label this. They're not super shady about these in particular because it's fully legal and they don't have to worry about the feds being on their ass. So when is a situation for you to take one of these? If you take like small amounts, again, they can be good for parties because it's got kind of like an alcohol feel in low doses. And if you take a combo to where the edible is more on like the, you know, like the sativa side, it can be very uplifting. It can be motivating. I will often take split synthetic psilocybin and Amanita hybrid chocolates or gummies a little bit before bed because it is extremely good for curing insomnia. I used to have some of the worst insomnia of any person I've ever interacted with. And it just helps you sleep better. You'll get vivid dreams, you'll get some crazy shit. So even if you don't want to get high and you just like vivid dreams, Amanita is your best friend. Again, check out Amanita Dreamer. She's calling it that for a reason. So yeah, check if it's got Amanita. If it doesn't say, it's likely in the next category of substances. And here we get into synthetic psilocybin analogs. Once again, YouTube, this is for educational purposes. All of the analogs discussed are federally unscheduled. You can check them. Don't make me have to sue you for continuing to take down my shit. You know it's legal, you just don't care enough to enforce your AI properly. Here is the educational content on these substances and how to responsibly use them, how to tell what they are. So, say you get yourself a quote-unquote magic mushroom chocolate bar from your smoke shop. You read the package. It does not mention THC. It does not mention Amanita. That doesn't mean it doesn't have either, but it means it's less likely. So, if it doesn't have THC or Amanita, what does it have? It has one of many synthetic research chemicals that are pharmacologically basically identical to psilocybin. The number one most available and is likely in the majority of the products is something called 4-ACO-DMT. Again, YouTube, this is for educational purposes. This substance is basically just psilocybin. When it breaks down in your body, it does the same shit. What a lot of people don't know about magic mushrooms, and this really goes to show that even enthusiasts in the psychonaut community have no idea what they're doing, psilocybin on its own does not do shit. It is inert. It does not do anything. It is a prodrug. It must decarb in the body and break down to become psilocin. And psilocin is what actually gives you the effects. So what these research chemicals do is they are built in a way chemically that when they are decarbed in your body, they will also convert to psilocin, just often in a slightly different way. For most of these research chemicals, you will not be able to tell the difference. I could give you a magic mushroom chocolate bar that I know with certainty has psilocybe cubensis in it. And I could give you another one with 4-ACO-DMT. And you would not be able to tell the difference unless you are extremely familiar with these products. There are subtle differences. We can discuss some of the subtle differences. But to a layman, to a newcomer, to someone who does not trip literally every few days like I do, you're not going to tell the difference. It doesn't matter. 4-ACO-DMT and most of these research chemicals all have the exact same safety profile as psilocybin. If you've done any basic cursory research into psilocybin, you will know that it is effectively impossible to overdose on. It physically cannot harm you. It can induce a mental state and other physical states that can be dangerous. So if you start losing your shit and run into oncoming traffic, obviously that's dangerous. But psilocybin didn't do that to you. You did that to you. Another thing it can do, it can cause intensive sweating and sort of like spasms. So keep hydrated. If you stay hydrated, if you eat, if you maintain proper body situation, even if you feel nauseous, even if you don't have an appetite, eat something simple. Eat some fruit. Eat some basic grains, like bread. You're fine. It cannot overdose you. It cannot kill you. Same with cannabis. It is believed that all of these research chemicals are the same because, again, psilocybin isn't what's doing shit to you. It's psilocin that's what's doing stuff to you. And because these become psilocin, they have the same safety profile. Oof, I'm talking loud. I'm starting to lose my voice. I imagine you can tell. So, how is this legal? And the answer is because the federal government are stupid. They don't know how this shit works. They don't enforce it well. They don't care. They want money. Give me money. If it's simple, if they can keep Big Pharma funded, if they can get their money from Big Pharma, they don't really look into it much. There is a document called the Federal Analog Act that was passed meant to say you can't just like spoof drugs and sell them on the market as drugs. That makes sense. And you would think, oh, so all of these research chemicals would fall under that category. Not always. Sometimes, yes. Here's the trick. It is completely legal to buy and consume any of these synthetic research chemicals. It is only illegal to sell for the explicit purpose of human consumption. So, how do these companies get around it? They say in the package, this is not FDA approved, this is not meant for human consumption. This is meant for spiritual purposes, religious experiments, and for scientific research. And if you do your disclosures well enough, and you're not too cocky, and you don't wave your shit on social media too much, the feds won't investigate you. It's that simple. Again, people don't seem to grasp these road trips, these tree houses, these companies, they make tens of millions of dollars. If it was such a problem, they would have been hit far harder. The reason why diamond shrooms got hit so bad is because they flew too close to the sun. And a bunch of dumbass kids who are on SSRIs had seizures and shit. Different story for a different time. But again, if you adhere to these principles, if you have your disclosures correctly, and you as a consumer, you can just go into a fucking gas station and you can reliably get perfectly safe, legal, synthetic psilocybin mushroom-based product, and you can trip fucking balls. The thing is, a lot of these companies started to determine that 4-ACO-DMT is a bit too obvious, and places are starting to test for it. So they start using these more niche or weird ones. There are hundreds of these. There are so many. All it takes is one chemist tweaking a little bit one time, and now boom, you have a new designer drug research chemical. It's that simple. So if it doesn't have 4-ACO-DMT and it feels like magic mushrooms, what is it? Well, you can go to the Psychonaut wiki and they have a list of like literally hundreds of these. The second most common that you're going to find is called something called 4-HO-MET. It's another research chem, breaks down into psilocin. However, it's believed that 4-HO-MET is far less of a visual and far more of a mental. So think kind of the difference between penis envy, which is a visual, and golden teachers, which is a mental. They got these weird gimmicks. Again, there's not a lot of difference between them, but if you do them enough, you can kind of feel the difference. So if you take this substance and it feels a lot like psychedelics, but you feel like the visuals just aren't all the way there, it's likely because it's one of these other alternatives. It's just as good, it's just as safe, it's just a little bit different. So that's one of the big ones. Another one is 4-HO-DMT, 4... They almost all start with 4-MeO. It doesn't. There are so many. So back on the topic of a previous video I released where it was discussing the vapes. What do the vapes contain then? It's believed, based on insider information revealed to me, that it is allegedly 4-HO-MIPT. This is a slightly different version, and most of these substances cannot be vaped successfully. To my understanding and to the understanding of the few people researching it, this specific research chem can successfully be vaped. It's going to feel more like a DMT vape. There are some places that sell straight up DMT vapes. There's a few places in the United States where it is legal. DC is one of them. This is going to feel just like baby's first DMT vape to you. It's not very strong. It's best as a booster. What else of wacky shit are you going to find in your smoke shops? Another one is kava. Kava is a plant that is native to the Pacific Islands and a lot of Oceania. It has a lot of religious and ritualistic symbolic purpose as a communal substance in those cultures. So if you care about appreciating other cultures and you want to try kava, please do so respectfully. There's been a lot of difficulties where these cultures are being harassed and harangued because of wackos in the West causing issues with it. Kava feels incredibly similar to alcohol, except it's far less of a bloated feeling. It's far less incapacitating physically, but as far as the headspace, it's going to be pretty close. So sometimes these brands will combo in kava with the other substances, be it Amanita or the research chems. And it'll kind of just be a more giddy, wacky kind of high. If you have one with kava in it, make sure you don't take too much, because again, you're going to feel like you're wasted. You know, it's the thing with kava that makes it very tricky is kava on its own is like one of the worst tasting things on earth. Anybody who's done kava can tell you it is fucking rancid. There are ways to make it less bad. You can get used to it, but it sucks ballsack. It's like a green sludge. It's awful. So if you're gonna take kava, take it in a trusted and respectable brand that gives it in gummies or capsules, or mixed in with this other stuff. Kava, again, is legal, to my understanding, in pretty much the entirety of the United States. It's legal in most places. I do think some places will often do the whole you have to be 21 or older to buy. But the weird thing with a lot of these research chemicals and strange alternative legal highs is there's not really a rule to it. There's no rule that says that you can't buy 4-ACO-DMT as a 5-year-old. Obviously, why would you? That's probably extremely dangerous, but legally nothing's stopping you. And that's kind of disconcerting. It's kind of yikes that is the case, but that is how it works. Most of these smoke shops will still ID you anyway, so do what you got to do. Other than kava, here's some other ones. You'll find a bunch of other different holistic mushrooms that'll be added in. Most of these have very minor effects. Basically, none of them are psychoactive, but they can make you feel good. You know, very subtle things. What are the weird ones we got? Blue Lotus. Blue Lotus is a very low-key psychoactive plant substance that can be smoked, drank as tea, eaten, you know, a lot of different forms. It's native to much of the Nile area of North Africa. So think Egypt, northern parts of Sudan, mostly that area. It can be cultivated elsewhere, but that's historically where it's been from. And so Blue Lotus historically had this long tradition as being kind of like ritualistically important to the ancient Egyptian people. Kind of one of those to where like you can commune with other realms. It's an understudied subject, but it is fascinating and it is a very ancient practice. On its own, Blue Lotus is very mediocre. it's gonna feel like a super weak indica. Think like the saddest Reggie of your life, and you're hitting it out of like a one hitter or aluminum. It is not strong. It's calming. It'll give you a little bit of a head high, but like, why? So what do you do with Blue Lotus? You typically combo it with other stuff. You can literally just add it into the rest of your flower for cannabis, and it'll just make it a calmer, more nice experience. Very easy. But here's the trick. And this is new on the market. I've not seen this much recently. And the pioneer of this, to my understanding, is the Wonder Gummy people. They started adding Blue Lotus to their... I don't think theirs is for ACO DMT. I think theirs is likely for HOMET, but I do not have confirmation of this. This is allegedly. Again, it certainly has a research chemical, but I'm not certain which one, because it's far more of the calming, like Golden Teacher style. So Wonder has their standard blend, and this is just whatever their regular shit is, the research chemical, you're good. Then they have the Kava blend. The Kava blend tastes terrible, but if you want to have a low dose, you know, like maybe you don't want to eat the full fucking bag, maybe you want one or two, it can be really nice with Kava. So try that one. But then you have the Blue Lotus. The Blue Lotus is the worst tasting of all of them. It's just their gummy preference. Wonder, this is my official call out. It tastes bad. Fix it. It's not even the research chemical. I just don't like the flavor. It's gross. Fix it. Please fix it. Otherwise, like, if you fix it, that'll be like my mainstay. I'm pleading. Please fix it. So the Blue Lotus, it just makes the come up not a problem. Like, at all for me. And keep in mind, I do ludicrous heroic doses. I'm talking like 2 full bags of Wonder entheogenic blend gummies with Blue Lotus, and the come up is like fine. I don't even feel like I'm dying. Something about it is just weirdly calming. So if you have access to Blue Lotus and you're gonna trip, combo the two. It seems like that might be one of the best solutions to come up anxiety of any of these other blends. It's very good. I only know of a couple places that do it. It's nice. Then finally, we have the last category of wacky shit you'll find in smoke shops that are often sold as mushrooms or mushroom adjacent, and that is Mad Honey. Most Mad Honey in smoke shops is fake. It's complicated. So Mad Honey is specifically honey cultivated at very high altitudes in a couple parts of the world, primarily the Himalayas and certain parts of the mountain ranges in central northern Turkey. It requires these specific flowers. The name I'm blanking out on, but you'll be able to Google it really easily. It starts with a C. It needs this specific flower, and the bees must get the pollen from that flower. And then when that flower is condensed and congealed, it becomes strong enough to be effectively psychoactive. The flower itself is psychoactive, but it's so low per volume that why would you do it? Just don't. So when you get the honey, these people have to like go up into the mountains and like poke the bees with the stick, and they have to like scoop it out. There'll be people literally doing like some crazy parkour bullshit to get this honey for people. True, genuine Mad Honey is hard to get and really expensive. Some of the stuff you'll find in smoke shops is actually Mad Honey. Most of it is not. What Mad Honey is going to feel like is a cross between a hybrid cannabis and a little bit of magic mushrooms. Feels like pretty much the middle of both. It's not... It is very simple and nice in low doses. In high doses, you will go crazy. Again, it is impossible to overdose and die on Mad Honey. It can... Watch a video of anybody taking more than 3 grams of Mad Honey. They will be barfing for 16 consecutive hours. So the Mad Honey itself won't kill you, but if you're barfing up that much liquid, dehydration and liver damage might get you. So don't. Do not take more than 1 gram. Anybody who knows anything about Mad Honey will tell you anything above 1 gram and you're getting into yikes territory. You could do it, but like, don't. So if you come to a smoke shop and you see Mad Honey, it's one of those, some of this is marketing bullshit, some of this is legitimate. For one, if it says it's not, if it does not say it's from either Nepal or Turkey, immediately don't buy it. It's basically guaranteed bullshit. If it says it's from Nepal or Turkey, look into it, scan the QR code on the back, try to do a bit of research. Because the trick is, a lot of this mad honey in smoke shops is actually just synthetic magic mushrooms in regular ass honey mixed with some sort of, like alt cannabinoid. So like a really classic combo is a small amount of typically 4-ACO-DMT, sometimes the 4-HO-MIPT. They'll sneak a little bit of that in the honey. It's just regular ass store-bought honey. And then they'll sneak in a little bit of like a THCP. So it's very small in the amount, but quite potent. And then they'll give you the thing of honey, you'll take it, and it'll feel ostensibly just like mad honey, but it's not. So now we get into the question of, does it really matter? No, but if they're lying about making mad honey, I mean, maybe they got fucking lead poisoning in there. You don't know. Maybe the guy in the fucking, the shady basement in, I don't know, rural Ohio who's pumping out fake honey, maybe he jizzed in the honey. You would never know. So, like, if they're being weird about it, just don't fucking buy it. You can get mad honey online. One of the issues with mad honey, again, is it's a gamble because it's hard to test it. And so one container of mad honey from the same hive, from the same company, and another container of the mad honey could have completely different potencies. It's all based on how that particular chemical is congealed in the honey by the bees at the time. It's basically impossible to control for. You can certainly test it, but if you're at the stage where you're testing it, you're not consuming it, you're testing it. So if you'd like to try mad honey, make sure it says it's from Turkey or Nepal. Typically you want to get it online rather than a smoke shop. Is it really worth it? Usually not. Again, it's just going to feel like light mushrooms and cannabis. It's fine. It's fine. Don't risk it. Other crazy shit that's added into these products, gabapentinoids. Sometimes they will add in a class of drugs called gabapentinoids. This also works on the GABA receptor. This is a type of medication that's usually prescribed for nerve pain, muscle spasms, fibromyalgia, like twitches and shit. Sometimes people with Tourette's will be prescribed it, but it also can work for seasonal affective disorder and anxiety disorders that are pertinent to things like OCD. So it is prescribed to many people for a variety of reasons. The number one most common form of this medication is called Lyrica. Lyrica is difficult because in some cases it's quite pleasant, but it can have very unpleasant withdrawal. So take it your own risk. But so some of these brands will add in a small amount of a less potent version of that stuff. Typically it's pregabalin. Sometimes they'll just say GABA on the package and it's like a generic. When you combo gabapentinoids with pretty much any of these other substances, it's gonna boost the potency a little bit. It's gonna boost the euphoria a bit. It's gonna make your motor functions less. Don't operate vehicles while on this kind of stuff. It can be really dangerous. But it can also calm you down. So adding gabapentin to a mushroom trip will make the come up less bad. So if you do some crazy mad scientist bullshit, again, this is for education, that do at your own risk as a responsible adult. I've done some weird bullshit where I've had 4-ACO-DMT gummies with the Blue Lotus from Wonder. And then I had some of the chocolates from Diamond Shrooms that I know for sure contain gabapentin. And you combo the two, and it was one of those weird trips to where I just did not have any come-up anxiety at all. Anybody who has done any psychedelics knows that that is fucking crazy. That is really, really unusual. So there's some weird shit that you can do, but like, again, you need to just be careful. It's your own body. This medication can have very complicated issues. The general warning I will issue about every single one of these substances you find in places is you must do research comparing it to any daily medication you take. If you are on certain antidepressants, certain anti-anxiety medications, it can be fatal. Magic mushrooms, psilocybin on their own are not dangerous, but when you combine them with other serotonic receptor type medications, so think SSRIs, it can induce something called serotonin syndrome, where it basically just kills your serotonin receptors, where you just can't feel happy anymore. I'm serious. It's very, very bad. There are ways that you can kind of slowly fix it over time, but you're going to enter into a deep depressive spiral. The best way I would describe serotonin syndrome to people who are in this area is I've not had this before, but if you've ever done MDMA or ecstasy repeatedly, you're rolling night after night after night, you'll find that if you stop rolling, if you stop taking ecstasy, you're going to feel depressed like shit for days to weeks after. Serotonin syndrome is basically that forever. So don't fuck around with it. Other medications will also increase the seizure threshold. Like I said, psilocybin-based substances, psilocin, it can cause muscle spasms, other weird twitches. It can give you the sensation almost like Jimmy legs. Again, on its own, it's not a problem. But if you take medication that lowers the threshold for seizures, it can give you seizures. People have been hospitalized because of seizures. And then when you combo them with other shit, the reason why Diamond Shrooms was recalled is because people were on SSRIs and then took the Diamond Shrooms, which has 4-ACO-DMT and gabapentin, and both of those raised the seizure threshold, and these kids are sent to the hospital because they did no fucking research. If you're gonna buy any of these products, make sure you consult with somebody. Come to the Mystery Magic Mushroom subreddit. We'll have information for you. Don't even bother with the Psychonaut subreddit. They're gonna judge you because they're weird and elitist. It's not worth your time. But compare your shit to the Psychonaut wiki. Check drug interactions. Check your medications. I know a lot of people will say this and a lot of people won't do it. Consult with your doctor. Again, these substances are legal. Your doctor can't say fucking shit about it. They are adherent to HIPAA. They cannot narc on you. These are legal substances. So if you want to do magic mushrooms, these legal synthetic magic mushrooms, and cure yourself of depression the way I did, you're free to try. But if you're on other medication, make sure you consult with a doctor, a pharmacologist, or somebody who is very, very familiar with this field. You are putting your life at danger if you buy these products and do no research, and frankly, you had it coming. Don't be a dumbass. Like, it's not super hard to Google the product you bought. Yeah, there's not a lot of information on it, but that's why the Mystery Magic Mushroom subreddit exists. Because somebody and some group has to be able to provide this information. And that's what we do on that subreddit. Try out a smoke shop product. If you got some cash and it looks cool, buy it. Bring it to us, take a picture, we'll do the research for you. So that concludes this video. Those are the things that you're likely to find in your Mystery Magic Mushroom products. Like I said, if you need more information, I'll link my subreddit down below. I'm open to direct communication. If you want direct guides on specific substances, specific substance combinations, specific doses, come to me, I can help you out. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a pharmacologist, I'm just a dude on the internet who has done way, way, way more of these substances than frankly probably any human on earth. We're getting to some crazy numbers here. All right, I'll leave it at that.